Welcome to the third episode of Let Me Speak to Your Manager. This is a podcast that celebrates the front line of customer service. Here we tell harrowing horror stories and hysterical nonsense from our experience on the customer-facing front line. You might laugh, you might cry, or you might just take a deep breath, calm down, and not freak out on that young, inexperienced retail agent that, just wants to get paid. I was going to say just wants to do their job. That's not always the case. Sometimes you are just there because you have to be, because you've been beaten down and ground down into monotony and nothingness. And that segues perfectly into this episode's story. This is a story about a customer in a very common situation where something in their life probably isn't going just the way they want it, and they decide to take it out on somebody that they think can deal with the punishment, or somebody that may be just an authoritative figure. This is also a story about a manager who, let's just say, takes the bullet for his employees and does the right thing by absorbing all of that vitriol that came his way. This is also a story about how cigarettes are bad for you and, can make some changes to your voice. It's also a story about a remote. This is Batteries Not Included.
Where do I start? So the phone rang one day. So I decided, I'm a pretty busy guy. I stay busy. I'm the manager, so I stay busy constantly. So one of my associates comes up to me and says, hey, a customer's on the phone needing a manager. I'm like, whoa. I was like, well, what is it about? I don't know, they just said they need a manager. I'm like, hold up, come on. You guys gotta screen my calls better. The only way this works is if you screen my calls so I know what I'm getting into. I don't like to pick up the phone and getting berated or anything else, or not knowing what I'm getting into. Regardless of the situation. The best situation is for me to know what I'm getting into prior to me getting into. Well, today this didn't happen. Okay? So I go to the phone and I pick up. And here's what I get. Is there a manager there? I'm like, okay. In my head, I'm thinking to myself, well, obviously this person either smokes nonstop and hasn't stopped since they were 3 years old, and that's just how they sound, or this is a character on The Simpsons that got outcast because it just was way worse than anything else that they had, and Mr. Burns was a way better fit. In fact, I would even think Marge's twin sisters, that's what I'm feeling like is answering on the phone right now. Okay? So let's just be clear on that. So I answer the phone. Are you the manager? And I'm like, yeah, I'm the manager. Is there gonna be a manager there all day? Well, yes. I was like, yeah, we're here all day till 8 o'clock. What time does the manager leave? I was like, well, excuse me, I'm here all day. I'm here till 8. Close at 8 o'clock. I'm here all day. Well, last time I came out there, the manager wasn't there. I was like, well, I'm here till 8 o'clock. If you want to come up here, that's fine. Come up here. I'll be happy to take care of any situation you've got. Like, well, I live an hour away. Okay, I'll be there. So in my head, I'm going, okay. It's fantastic. I'm mentally preparing myself for whatever this might be because I was like, is there something I help you out with? No, I just need a manager, okay? Okay, I get it. The manager will be here till 8 o'clock. Hopefully we can get you resolved, and I'll be happy to take care of anything you got going on. So, the day goes on, and this was probably your 10, 11 o'clock day, about 4 or 5 o'clock. This customer rolls up, and as soon as they roll up, they roll up in a beat up car, and I could tell they were my typical customer, and I was like, I hope this is an easy situation I can talk myself out of, because normally it's credit based or if it's something else, and I can resolve it with either, hey, here's a cord, or here's this, here's that, and it solves the issue. Maybe a battery or two. Well, once she opened the door and she opened her mouth, I knew this was going to be something different. And of course, there was about 2 or 3 other customers in the store. Music's playing loud as always to kind of drown out the nonsense in the background. The customer comes in and they're like, my TV won't turn off. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry, your TV won't turn off. How can I help you? My TV won't turn off. Okay, well, where's the remote? The remote doesn't work. Okay, well, I'm sorry to hear that. What's going on with the remote? I don't know. You sold me this piece of shit. Okay, ma'am, I'm sorry you feel that way. But let's calm down. Let's refrain from the language. We'll try to resolve your issue. I'd be happy to, either find you another remote or maybe some batteries that will fit the remote, and maybe that'll help the TV turn off. You don't understand what's going on here. Okay. Well, let's take a look at your account. You need to get this fixed. I'm tired of your old shit and shenanigans. Ma'am, okay, yes, we'll be happy to look in that. We'll get this all taken care of and squared away for you. You don't understand, you stupid piece of shit. Ma'am, look, I understand you're upset, and let's get this resolved. I'm on your side. I want all my customers that come through the store to be happy. Are you the manager? Because you don't seem like you know what you're doing. Ma'am, yes, I am the manager. I've been a manager here for several years, and I'd be happy to take care of your issue. Let's diagnose the situation. Let's see what's going on, and I'd be more than happy to give you some clarity and get this fixed up for you. Well, you better look and get this straightened out. So as I'm going through and I pull up the account and everything with the customer, well, come to find out, she hasn't made a payment on this TV in 4 months. 4 months. So basically anything I can do for the customer is pretty much shut down. I was like, ma'am, I just want to let you know, we appreciate you being a customer, but you haven't made a payment on your TV in the last 5 months. Well, that's not true. I make my payment every month. Well, no, ma'am. I appreciate your effort to make the payment, but there really hasn't been a payment made in like 3 or 4 months. What do you mean? Well, what I mean is, like, your account's suspended. Like, we can't. There's nothing. Like, I want to help you. I'll be happy to put some batteries in a remote and see if we can get the TV working. But outside of that, like, as far as your account, it's suspended. We can't do anything. You're gonna either start to make payments on it, or I'm gonna have to report you, and I don't want to have to do that. And we'll probably have to end up taking the TV back if that's not gonna be the case. No, I'm not doing that. Well, ma'am, I really want you to be a satisfied customer. Like, that's my end goal, is to make you as happy as you can be. But you're not giving me much to work with here, and I really want to work with you to make sure that I can make you a happy customer. Well, you just don't understand. I'm leaving. Okay, so she throws the remote in my face. Leaves it there on the counter. I was like, well, I can't keep the remote. The account's suspended. I can't return anything or do anything with that. So I look at the customer. She's running out the door. Not really running because she's an old lady and she's kind of hobbling and skipping along. So I look at my associate next to me. I was like, well, I'm going to have to return this product back to her because now it's part of her product. I can't return it and take it into my inventory because her account's delinquent. So I put it in a bag. I'm going to take it back outside. Mind you, I have about 3 or 4 customers in the store. Music playing pretty loud. Glass doors. I walk outside. I said, ma'am, you're going to have to take your remote and here you go. I can't return anything. I can't do anything for you. You're upset and I understand that, but here you go. You're going to have to take this. She looks at me and she pulls down her mask and goes, you motherfucker! Fuck you! Like, oh, well, okay. Hey, look, I'm really sorry you feel this way, but this isn't my product. Fuck you! Take your motherfucking shit and shove it up your ass! Okay. Ma'am, but again, this is your product. If I take it, I can't take it now because you'll have no way for me to track that. And you have to take this. You stupid fucker! You stupid piece of shit! Ah! Ma'am, I'm sorry you feel that way, but here's your product, and you're gonna have to find a way to get your account unsuspended so we can help you out. Like, you're gonna have to come current with your payments and stuff. This stupid fucking company and you stupid motherfucker, you can go to hell! Ma'am, I'm really sorry you feel that way, but here's your product. Here's the number to call. Please call them and they will help work with you with payment arrangements and everything else, and we'll be happy to deal with that. You don't understand the shit that I'm going through! Well, ma'am, I'm really trying to understand. Fuck you! Ma'am, seriously, I'm really trying to understand and work with you. Here's the information. Here's your stuff. Fuck off! Ma'am, it's obviously clear that we cannot do business here any longer. Here's your stuff, and have a great day. She walks off. I walk back into the building. I literally have every customer staring at me as I walk back in the door. I was like, did I do something wrong? Hello? And the customer's like, do we need to hide? I was like, what do you mean? I was like, I don't think I've ever... The customer sitting over in the other corner goes, I don't think I've ever heard a customer scream and yell at someone through the window while the music is blaring, and I'm trying to have a conversation with another representative trying to get another appliance on my account, and that customer is yelling so loud that I heard them through the door, and I kind of clenched, and I was fearful of my life. So I look at the customer and I say, no, ma'am, I'm sorry you had to go through that. But obviously this was a situation that was out of my control, and I really try to control the situation, and I'm sorry you were subjected to that. But no, you do not have to hide. And if I see this lady pull back up, believe me, you will be the first one to know, and I will tell you that, hey, there might be something else going on. But this little old lady is just aggravated and upset, and I don't think there's anything else we could do to satisfy her at this point. I think the batteries ran out on her remote, and she couldn't turn the thing off. And by the thing off, I mean her mouth. So anyway, so as the day goes on, and you know, we got everybody else in the store taken care of, she calls back to the store, and again, she goes, I need to speak to the manager. And at this point, when I heard the raspy, smoky voice, and I knew she had smoking about probably 50 packs today, and the rep goes, she's back on the phone. So I grab the phone and I pick it up reluctantly, but I had to because it's the right thing to do. And she goes, "Are you the manager?" I said, "Yes, ma'am, I am." She goes, "You sound like the same person I was talking to before." I said, "Well, are you the lady that had the issue with the TV and the remote?" She goes, "Yes, I am." She go, and so I told her, I was like, "Well, yes, I'm the one you deal with." "You motherfucker!" So I politely hung up the phone and walked away. And that was the story for today. And it was quite interesting. And I hope nobody in life ever has to deal with that again.
And that was batteries not included. Tyler, that was a crazy story, but not unlike some of the, interactions I've had working in retail.
Yeah, I feel like, there's always going to be those exaggerated situations where the customer's super emphatic and embellished and over the top and unrealistic with expectations. But, that one, I mean, anytime a customer points at you and calls you motherfucker, it's almost like you got hit in Call of Duty with like a stun grenade or something. You're stunned for a second. You're like, how do I react to this? Because immediately your initial reaction to is put guns on guns. But you can't do that. You have to sit back and you have to relax and analyze the situation and be like, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. Even though I was called a motherfucker. And I was, finger in my face. She's spitting her potentially COVID breath all over me. And I'm trying to stay socially distanced, but she's obviously too hard of hearing to step back a little bit. So it's like, that stuff is frustrating. And so, you just got to take it all in and understand, if you're on the other side of the situation, however, obviously there were some unrealistic expectations set in this dichotomy, and it just didn't work out.
Customers are pros at catching you off guard. That's for sure. I'd like a customer one time called me the N-word. He called me the N-word, and that was such a weird thing. And it was the hard R. And I was completely just thrown off from that, and it was just, just over some stupid billing thing that I had no control over.
Yeah. So, I mean, in those situations, you just got to realize, who's the customer, how you're going to react. You can't you can't throw fuel on a fire. You got to put it out. And so the initial reaction to that is not combating it with more that's going to cause it to escalate further. You need this customer to leave, because obviously when you got a customer like that inside the store, any store, everybody turns and looks their head. Because why? Because we're trained to do that and catch a camera moment. And the last thing I'm going to do is be on YouTube or Instagram, TikTok, whatever the hell social media outlook is out there. You're not going to catch me on that. You're not going to catch me on there doing something I'm not supposed to do. So the important thing is, at that point, regardless of the situation, regardless of the person in front of you, you don't react in a toxic way back, because that you see oftentimes with other reps and sales associates, they buckle. And they want to, their initial reaction is, without training, is to, oh, you're attacking me. They're just mad at the situation and the brand, not you. And so you have to take yourself out of that situation. So I, many times have to, remind my employees of that, is that, the important thing is, at the end of the day, if I were to combat it back with that same fuel and fire, that's what they're going to think is okay. And then at the end of the day, you're dealing with 4, 5, 6 of these in a day. And if you can imagine getting cussed out 4, 5, 6 times, you might as well go and work in retention at some departments.
Well, sometimes it's what the customer wants, right? They want you to clap back at them, and then we're kind of in that clap back culture, anyways. And a lot of times that's what they want, because I think if they can goad you into a heated dispute like that, then they have the right to take it to the manager and be like, your associate was yelling at me, and they can try to use that as leverage, or like you said, use it as social media leverage. But the best payback for those type of customers is actually just being super nice to them, because it actually pisses them off more, and there's nothing they can do about it. One of my favorite things to do when I had a customer that was just being outrageous was to, once the interaction was over, after I'd been just perfectly nice to them, once the interaction was over, was just to say, "Have a nice day," as they go to walk out, and you always see them kind of stop and like get kind of angry, and then they turn around and they're like, "You too," because they have to acknowledge that you were pleasant with them the entire time. And that's kind of the best revenge there.
Yeah, and that happens quite a bit. And you gotta, there's a fine line you gotta walk, because you gotta know the divisiveness of the situation. If something like that is on the up and up, or if it's on the down and out. If it's on the down and out, you for sure don't want to do that, because then that customer's now even more irate, because it seems as a sarcasm, or a matter of fact, hey, I beat you, and so you got to be careful with that too, because you don't want that customer to pull their car up to the door and trap you all in there and do some other crazy unforeseen stuff. Because I've had customers before get really upset with an employee doing something like that, and they pulled their truck all the way up to the front door, up to the point where you couldn't even open it to get out. So what do you do at that point? So I always remind people, be cognizant of the situation when you're telling an employee or a customer, have a nice day, because even though your gesture may be well meant,
yeah, well, mine was usually not well meant. It was the I won, because if you were my customer, more than likely I was winning that interaction.
Yeah. So it reminds me of the other day we had someone came in, they were missing a part off their washer and dryer. It was a hose that they needed to connect. And they're like, well, it didn't come with a thing. I said, well, where did you get the washer? Well, it was shipped to me from out of state. I'm like, well, why didn't they ship it to you? Because they said you would have the part here. I was like, well, yeah, that would make sense in a perfect world, but I have no idea who sold you the washer and dryer, even though it's the same company. Be happy to get you one. It's $10. And so at the end of the day, I said, we're arguing over $10. I'll give you a bill credit. Well, I don't want to pay that. And so the person from the other state calls and is like, why can't you just give them a part? I'm like, well, there's compliance and other things that are metric in this situation. And I didn't gain any benefit from this other than dealing, with finalizing the transaction for you, which I shouldn't have to do. And I get that that's, my job is customer satisfaction. But at the end of the day, it's like, if this was your store the other way around, you'd be the same way. And so I made that employee wear that shoe on their foot. And they're like, yeah, you're right. So I want you to call the customer and you tell them, hey, yeah, I screwed up. They're going to I'll give you a $10 bill credit. Pay the $10. All said and done. Because on a month-to-month anyway, you get that back. So I just don't see what the difference is. And so, it's just one of those things, at the end of that transaction, the customer, actually was, peachy and rosy and was fine. Nothing wrong. And understood at that point, like, hey, there's two different dynamics going on here. They were caught in the crossfire, and we had to pull them aside of it versus throwing them into it, because it could have definitely gone the other way. And so, I don't know. I just think it's one of those things where, you start throwing cuss words and everything else, and you're in a professional place of business, it's really hard to step that emotion aside, because you're getting pointed at, you're getting cussed out, you're the one that is the problem, you're the front line of the company at that point in time. And so it's definitely tough, and I commend anybody that's ever had to do that before, because it is not an easy task. Anytime you hear those words, let me see your manager.
Yep, let me speak to your manager. Yep.
Yeah, let me see what else is going on first, because I might just be busy at the moment.
Yeah, and customers usually have a pretty good radar for bullshit. They can usually tell when you're bullshitting them for the most part. That's why it's always been my policy, and it always worked really good for me to just kind of be straight up with people. I remember one time we had a store that had some turnover with some bad employees, and we were training some new employees, and we had one of those newer employees on the floor working, and he didn't really have that much experience yet, and he got with a customer that was just having a bad day, one of those customers, and he got angry and was asking for a manager. So I stepped in place of it because I was like, I got this. He's like, "Are you a manager?" I'm like, "No, but I'm one of the leads here. I can take care of you." And he's like, "Well, this guy just doesn't know what he's doing." And I'm like, "Yeah, he's new. He's just getting his licks in. He's still learning." He's like, "Well, why is he out here? Why is he by himself?" I'm like, honestly, that's a lot of times the best way to learn. Just throw him in the fire and let him be forged in fire. And he sit there for a second, and he thought about it, and he goes, "You're right." And then that was it. He wasn't angry anymore. I finished up his transaction, and then we had him out of the store.
Well, and there's generally two things when it comes down to let me see your manager. Two things happen. There's an angry customer, and you got the employee that doesn't know how to handle it. Because there's several times I know that escalations have come into my location, and I've never heard a peep of it because the employee that was dealing with it not only was cool, calm, and collective, they resolved and potentially got more out of them based on promotions and stuff going on. So it's one of those things like where, and this can go for anybody. If you're thinking about it, any employee can step in with any amount of confidence and de-escalate any situation. I promise you that. There's nothing a customer's going to ask generally that a regular person at the store level at any store that I've ever been to. Now I get there's overrides and codes and permissions and stuff like that, but for the most part, there's no person on this earth that's a frontline employee that can't de-escalate something if they choose not to. If they want to, they can do it 100%. And every day that I've worked, I value most the employees that I can look at and say, "Hey, can you help diffuse this situation? I've got some other stuff going on." Because if you're a manager and if you've been in a manager role, you know that there's 15 other things that are probably prioritized higher than a singular escalation. Now, however, the customer is the most important thing because they drive the business. So you can't really let one off fall off. And so that's where trust becomes a big important factor. And, my situation on this one was not the case. The rep kind of, took offense to everything and, just kind of buckled and was like, well, instead of saying, well, no, I can handle anything that you're asking me to handle. Let's look at the situation. And in that case, the bill was outstanding. Well, if you're outstanding anywhere, credit card, anything, you're not going to be able to make or do anything else. You can't take out additional money. It's locked. And so, people have to understand that. If you at the front line can dissect the root of the problem and then give that back to your manager, there's no escalation. I can come out there and say, "Hey, well, I'm sorry. This is the situation, but here's what we can do." And the best thing at any level, again, is if you give a customer options. Give them 1 to 2 options, even if they're terrible options. They get to choose. Let them pick which avenue they're going to pursue. So, like I told the lady, you can bring your account current. I'll be happy to help you. If you're unable to do that, here's the number to our, credit team and see if they can work out an arrangement with you to get you back on track to catch up on your payments. Especially during these times, most people are more than willing to do that. It just takes a little bit of effort on the customer's part, and maybe they don't like that, but that's still an option. The third option was just keep the stuff that you have and let it go into foreclosure, and we'll come get it when we need it. your choice. But you can't just drop it back off here and say sorry about you. That's not the way that works. You've signed an agreement. You've signed the deal. That's your product. So I told my employee, I said, "There's your 3 options. Which one of those would you take?" And they started thinking about it. Well, I don't like any of them. Well, yeah, no, you don't have to like them. But those are your 3 options. And you come into my store, what other options do I have? Who can I call as a manager to get this fixed? And the rep looked at me and said, "You don't have a number to call?" My numbers are the same as yours. No. The policies are the same as yours. No. You can provide the customer the same experience, the same support, and guess what that does for you down the road? It sets a tone. Now, I'm looking at you not as an employee, but like, hey, you're my dude or you're my woman. You're the person I'm going to at the end of the day and saying, hey, I need help with this. Can you step in? And then all of a sudden, now that's a litmus test. Let's see how this employee can handle this. They handle it well, great. Now I'm thinking, hey, here's my next me coming up the ladder. If they can't, cool. Maybe there's another avenue. Maybe fast food is going to work out better for you.
That is true. That way you could just churn them out there in fast food. But yeah, I think just our culture today is very instant gratification. That's the focus, and there's not enough root cause analysis that goes on. And I this. I come from a more technical background in terms of repairing things and troubleshooting and that type of stuff. So I come from, hey, let's figure out what the root cause of this issue is, and I think a lot of times people just all they want to see or all they care to see, and they don't put in the work to see past the symptoms, and they treat the symptom instead of the disease, and it just makes a continual cycle or just perpetuates the issue. We used to run in this all the time back when I was training call centers on how to troubleshoot, and there would be that short-term thinking of, hey, I'll just do this, I'll just reset their equipment, right? That gets me off the phone, that improves my metrics, bing, bang, boom. Well, they weren't looking at the long-term game of, hey, that customer is going to call back in a couple days when their issue returns because you just put a Band-Aid on it. By doing that, you're actually costing the company more money. So you have to change that. You have to change that mindset of, hey, this might cost you a little bit more in the short term, but in the long term, it's going to really help you out because guess what? You take care of those customers up front, and then your queues get much shorter because you don't got those people calling back, and your days become lighter, and you don't have people yelling at you all the time because this is the 3rd time they've called back about the same issue. But it's hard to change that mentality of people sometimes because they just want that quick fix, and a lot of times there isn't a quick fix. It's you got to find out what that root cause is.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And and I can tell you, anybody that listens now that has been in customer service for any length of time, and they've been on a call center side of it, they know that their metric is really based on handle time. If their handle time's high, they're going to get talked to by their boss. Why is your handle high? You're causing the queue to back up. You're causing more delays, more agony, and as a customer, you recognize that on the phone. If you're waiting and waiting and waiting, your agitation level, regardless of the situation, it could be just a simple $5 or $10 issue, turns into I just wasted 2 hours of my life trying to get this resolved when it's a quick fix. Or I got the rep on the phone, instead of fixing it, they said, oh, yeah, sorry, it'll be corrected on the next bill. Next bill comes through. Oh, there it is again. And you're calling back again, waste another 2 to 3 hours. And it's, now it's not $10, it's 20 or 40 or whatever it is. And it's, that sucks. And that's terrible. And then at that point, what do? They ain't calling again. Where are they going? If you have a storefront, hey, hello, front-facing employee that doesn't handle bill or escalations. You're a sales associate. not a billing escalationist or a billing specialist or a retention specialist. You're now all that. And that sucks. And I get that. And so at the front line, I always tell, my employees, like, if there's an issue, solve it. Because if you can't solve that issue, they're either going to come back, they're going to call in, or both. Yep. And then now your problem just got compounded. And instead of wasting the 10 minutes that it would have taken you before to get the problem resolved, you're wasting hours upon your day. Because now you got to go back and try to remember the transaction, pull the information up, on top of everything else, then get with care, get with everything else, and then try to resolve the situation. That is now a toxic situation where 2-3 months ago, oh yeah, this is all you got to do. Here's the information you need. Yep. And so that's terrible. That's a horrible. And so I always tell my employees, put yourself in the customer's shoes. What if you spent a whole day doing that? Well, how would you feel? Would you feel great? Hell no. Remember the last time you bought a car? Was it pleasant? And I would answer you, fuck no, it sucks. I'll be in and out of there. My credit's good. Yeah, it doesn't matter what your credit is. You're going to be there all day regardless, because you know why? Because
unless you buy a Tesla.
Unless you buy a Tesla, and they'll ship that shit to you. But no, regardless of credit or anything else, at a car buying experience is awful. Hands down awful, because no one knows what the hell they're doing. And there's so many lines of command that they have to channel up through. Imagine being frontline and a customer going through that at a retail level. That shit sucks. No one wants to deal with that.
It just becomes a cycle of getting more angry, and then you don't solve the issue, and they call back in, and they don't get it solved there either, and then they come back to the store and they're 3 times as mad, and it's your day off, and then they have to one of your teammates has to deal with them, and they are dealing with this angry customer, and they're having this horrible experience because you didn't do what you needed to do. You didn't take the time to do it. But also back to my call center days, I saw managers that were afflicted with this too, where they were just chasing a metric, because that's how it is. You have that upper leadership that has, hey, handle time is the metric. Let's chase, and leadership is very bad about this. They play the short-term game of, oh, this is what the VP is focused on right now. Everybody drop everything else you're doing, get calls over as quick as you can, and then 3 months later they're like, oh my God, all these callbacks are out of control. Let's focus on this. And it just becomes a cycle where people are only ever focusing on one metric instead of the whole picture. And I spent a lot of my time coaching and doing root cause analysis and finding out what these true issues of these teams were, and helping managers become more successful. And the managers that embraced that kept their jobs. There was one manager that I did research on his team. I poured through so much data to find, what his team was truly struggling with. And I went to him and I said, hey, this is what I think your team is struggling with. Here's the numbers to back this up. But the good news is during your next team meeting, we can address this. Send your team an email, give them a Q&A on this subject, and when I come back in your team meeting, I'll answer those questions, and then we'll do a follow-up the next week in the next team meeting to do an additional training. Well, that manager never took the effort or the initiation to, reach back out to me and to get that set up. And a month later, he was cut. So things like that is just sad, because I could have helped him keep his job 100%, because I did it for one of his peers. One of his peers was on the chopping block, and I went out of my way to do the research, find out what his team was struggling with, and help them get past the issue, because they had the root cause of their issue was they had a mix of very new people, they had a mix of very tenured people, and neither side, the very tenured people just didn't really understand the technology that much, and were really tepid, and the newer people were really tepid just because they were new, and they didn't want to lose customer data. And so they were so afraid about losing customer data that they weren't willing to do all the necessary troubleshooting steps. So they would just skip that. And that would cause their AHT was good. Their handle time was good. But their customer service surveys and their repeat calls were just in the tank. They were just being demolished. And that was the root cause. It was that one little thing that was the root cause, but nobody had taken the time to go and look through the data to really see what was causing their other numbers to be bad. And not enough managers do that.
So what I would challenge people to do in a hiring position, I would recommend, highly that we ask a simple question. Last time you were in a situation where someone was yelling at you or upset, visibly upset, maybe not even just yelling at you, but you could tell that they were a Karen. How did you handle that?
Were you Karen?
Right.
Were you caring about the situation?
Were you caring about the situation? Exactly. And so you can reverse engineer that that situation on the employee and just ask them, even if it's a new hire coming in, like, hey, how did you handle that situation last time? Because if you're unable or unwilling, and it's not that you're unable, because I think everybody's able to do anything they want. Are you willing to do it? If you're not willing, then you're just leaving it up to fate to decide the outcome. And 9 times out of 10, when that happens, let me see your manager.
Well, and as a manager, or a trainer or something like that, you can overcome knowledge and skill gaps. You can help your employees overcome those gaps. But what you can't resolve is a will gap. No manager or trainer can overcome a will gap. That has to be on you as an employee. And if you don't have the will to do it, you'll never have the skill.
I can teach anybody a skill any day of the week, anytime. You need to learn how to do something? I got you. If you're not willing to learn it, I'm sorry about you. One of my favorite things as a leader is what's called the accountability ladder. And on that, it's very simple. Are you perpetuating victim behaviors? Are you exemplifying solving behaviors? Because if you're acting as a victim, well, guess what's going to happen? Nothing good. Blame others. You're unconscious, unaware of what's going on. You hope and pray that something's going to get better. Well, those aren't things that's going to change. But once you start embracing the situation, you start finding ways to solutions and making results happen, then all of a sudden, now you're a leader. And that doesn't change overnight for everybody. But what I would say is, if you can get an employee that is willing to learn, act, and conquer, you're good. But if they can't do those 3 simple things, you can't win a situation ever. If you're going to say, well, that's not really my job. Well, I'm sorry, what did I hire you to do? Hope and pray? That's not going to work. That's not a skill. I could hire anybody to do that. In fact, I could probably go find some of these. What are the little molecular things that just live everywhere? The little bears.
Oh,
the isotope bears. Whatever the hell they are.
Water bears.
Water bears.
Yeah, water bears.
Give me a water bear. Those water bears at some point are going to learn the skill. It may take me all my life to get them to learn it, but you know what? I guess at the end of the day, they're going to learn how to create an account. Establish credit. Help that customer get something they want. I'm just saying.
That's very true. Man, we've almost hit 30 minutes here. So let's go ahead and round this out for the discussion section of the podcast. So are there any updates from that story? Did that customer come back? Did you coach your initial employee that kind of bobbed and weaved?
Yeah, so there was a lot of things that happened. Well, there was one thing specifically that happened. A lot of coaching. Okay, because the employee did not like that at all. Well, no, I handled it right. Well, then why was I the one out there getting cussed out and yelled at this for the second visit for that customer? If it had been the first and we dealt with it right then and there, it was one thing. But obviously, it didn't get dealt with the first time properly. And so a lot of coaching happened. A lot of coaching happened. And, I'm not the type of person. I'm not a yeller. I don't scream at people. I want them to learn and be willing to learn from their, hiccups or, missteps. But the customer did not come back. I can almost assure you that almost every single time, either the customer is leaving somewhat happy or understanding the situation at the end of the day. They like, look, here are your options. Take it or leave it. And, once you provide that, regardless of whether you're right, wrong, or indifferent, you've given options. And, in this case, obviously, we did the right thing by the customer and, really tried to, I tried to get through to them even after they were berating me with an onslaught of 4-letter foul language. And, no one should be subjected to that. And especially if I hear that if I hear that from anywhere in the store, a frontline employee, I'm not going to let them take that heat. That's my job. I'll take that heat because frontline employees are going to lose their mind. They're not going to hold their cool. They don't know how to. They're not paid to do that either. So I get that at some level. You got like I said, you got the really good employees that you treat like a rock star, and they're your gyms and your go-to team that will handle it just fine, no worries. And you'll never know that a customer was upset. But at that point, the customer never came back in. So they obviously understood when they left after they had onslaughted me with all that trash and vomiting of words.
Verbal diarrhea.
Verbal diarrhea, as you would call it. Yes, absolutely. And so they understood at that point. But yeah, absolutely, a lot of coaching to that employee that handled that situation, because not only was it the first time, it was the second time they came in there. And that should have been something the very first time that should have been portrayed to the customer, like, hey, here's your options. That obviously wasn't given. You give that customer a customer care number. They call back and they say, oh, go back to the store. Let me see your manager.
Well, I think that's a good place to wrap up the podcast. So yeah, so that was a really funny story. I'm sure it wasn't funny at the time, obviously, but going back and revisiting those stories definitely is funny in hindsight. But yeah, so I don't know what our next story is going to be. I don't know who our next guest is going to be just yet. But if you liked it, if you're listening to this on YouTube or wherever, give us a like, subscribe, just comment, give us some comments, just give us some feedback.
Leave your feedback. Please leave the feedback, because we'd like to know, because I guarantee you I'm not the only one, and common places are safe places. Let's share our love together.
All right. We'll see you guys on the next one.